From the northwest to the southeast, there is a reckless spree of blood spillage, and this doesn't exclude those meant to protect the people, the security agents. The protector needs protection too, and the ones being protected are not sure of what the next day holds. Every way forward seems to take us backwards, yet this is one period that shouldn't be left to last. It's already lasted too long, and every Nigerian can feel the heat. What's the solution? What's the solution? Welcome to the essay. I'm Chilaka. In a quarterly, there's a picture of dejection painted in Nigeria. Is an aggregation of the people whose lives have ended abruptly in the hands of gun runners and daredevil terrorists. The sounds of sporadic gunshots are deafening, and the revelations of pain and agony are no music to the ears of those that care. In the last 3 months, the media reported the killing of 105 soldiers and 1,153 civilians. Nigerians sleep with an eye closed, scared of the next bang, even when it's not related to violence, because these are indeed troubling times. A way forward that won't lead us backwards is our focus. We seek solutions to these challenges. Joining me to unpack this is retired Commodore Abimbola Ayuba. He's a security risk consultant, and Francis Chilaka, who's a security analyst. Gentlemen, good to have you both with me today on the square. Very quickly, let's start with you, Commodore Abimbola Ayuba. You know, for the amount of money reportedly spent on security so far, is it a source of worry that we still haven't actually made much progress as a country?
Thank you very much, Sulai. When we measure spendings, defense spendings, we need to be cautious because most of the equipment that are actually being ordered for will not arrive at the same time. And most of them are not found off the shelf. So for every type of specialized equipment, you will need some lead time, and lead times, depending on which country is offering the equipment, could be between 24 months to sometimes 36 months to get equipment ready for use. So by and large, most of the equipment that had been ordered in the past 1-2 years are beginning to come into service. And of course, we are beginning to see gradually the impact of some of these equipments as the impact in the fight against terror.
We'll come back to you so that we can expatiate more, talk about the impact, which some Nigerians have started talking about, you know, looking at the relative gains being recorded by the Nigerian troops. Let me go to Francis. Francis, good to see you again. But again, being someone who's always, you know, been following security situation in the country as an analyst, what would you say, or how would you describe the state of security intelligence at the moment in Nigeria?
Well, I think that the major problem starts with the fact that intelligence gathering has become a real source of worry to Nigeria. That is a very serious problem that needs to be solved. Coupled with the fact that all the millions that have been spent, let us say the millions have been spent on procurement of equipment, but are we also spending millions of the men and women who are meant to utilize this equipment and who are meant to safeguard the lives and properties of the Nigerian people? So the thing is that it is one thing to spend millions procuring equipment, but we must also spend millions to educate, orientate, and secure the lives of the same people who are meant to secure the Nigerian people. So you can't spend on one side and leaving the other side without taking care of it. So that is where the major problem of insecurity lies in this country right now.
Well, Commodore Ayuba, you know, let's quickly bring you in on this, knowing full well that before, while you're in service, you've actually also had some other stints outside the shores of Nigeria. Some Nigerians have said the length of the current security challenges, raise suspicion about the culpability of state and non-state actors. Do these insinuations cut it? How long is so long for Nigeria to be dealing with what it is dealing with at the moment, security-wise?
Thank you very much, Sulai. The issue about terrorism is that it could be quite long-lasting. And from the global averages, it could last between 12 years and 20-something years. Actually, in the Nigerian situation, we are now beginning to understand the nature of the problems that we are having, and that's what is necessitating declaration of groups, proclaiming them as terror groups, so that the appropriate military action can be taken to deal decisively with the situation. Hitherto, it had been like playing with the situation with kid gloves. But now we can see the concern. Even the legislators are beginning to understand that the military cannot take certain steps if the laws are not in place and if the prescriptions are not properly in place for the implication of international law and order. And we know that right now, we all are coming on the same page, that what we are dealing with is terrorism, and whatever names we've been calling them should be left in the past. So with that in mind, we can see as it is that the efforts of the military, at least showing up from the change of the current services chiefs and the way they fight and plan, we are beginning to see some positive impact in the strategies being adopted by our military. However, most of, we can also see a change in confidentiality, rather than fighting from the pages of newspapers as it was hitherto the case. Most of the operations now are well shielded and quite confidential, even though where we get results of casualties here and there, but a lot is being done right now. And that should be the focus of our support, and where the basis upon which we measure what actions are being taken at the moment. It may not just be a one-off thing, but concertedly, we remain consistent with it, we are likely going to defeat the high-level presence of terrorists and then begin to manage the conflict in a form of low-intensity operations. Thank you.
Well, Commodore Ayuba, thanks. And again, you made mention of the word, support. Let me quickly bring in Chilaka, because that's where he left off. You were talking about spendings, and you, in particular, mentioned the troops. You can't be getting military hardware and software and not be taking into cognizance those who will operate, these hardwares. That's your take, Chilaka. Let's talk more about these brilliant, officers, men and women fighting to protect Nigeria. Your worry is that the government isn't doing enough for them. Tell us more about, your take on that.
Well, my take is very simple and straightforward. There are certain steps that we expect this government to take, which the government has not taken. For instance, we keep hearing about bandits, banditry, bandits, and we should ask ourselves, who are these bandits? At what point in time have bandits become so sophisticated that they have armory with which they can, shoot down an aircraft? So if we have bandits who are doing this, automatically they shouldn't be called bandits. The government should take a step by declaring them as a terrorist group. When they do that, a lot of things would change. Also, we need to look at our borders. You can't ask the gallant Nigerian soldiers, men and women, to go and fight, and the borders are porous. You know, people are entering and people are exiting. Nobody's controlling the borders up north. Something is definitely wrong. So people, they have been exposed daily. And then there is need, I keep saying it, there is need to look at the welfare of the Nigerian security men and women. There's urgent need to look at it. Sometimes you see a policeman, the way they dress, and you ask yourself, I mean, what kind of a country is this? Where your senators are earning 13 million, how much is a police officer earning? Sometimes you call a police station, you have an issue, you call them, they say they don't have petrol in their vehicle. It is annoying, it's upsetting. It's the height of, irresponsibility. So the government must honor to it. The government must, as you're spending money acquiring arms and ammunition, spend same amount of money to kit the soldiers, the policemen, and ensure that their life is also protected. They need to have insurance. They need to insure their lives. You see, when you pay a policeman, for instance, I said this to somebody yesterday, I said, if a policeman monthly salary is 30,000 naira, and then you ask him to go and arrest somebody, and he goes to the person's house and the person drops 500,000 naira on the table for him, how many of our policemen would walk away without collecting that money? So we need to ensure that they are properly taken care of to a point where nothing would actually entice them to look the other way.
Well, Chilaka, that's a point. But again, we'll come, for you to expatiate that. Let me bring in Commodore Ayuba here. Retired, Commodore, listening to Chilaka, he said something about the porosity of the Nigerian borders. And I recall once your worry back then, before the coming of the new service chiefs, you were talking about synergy amongst all security agents and agencies. When anyone says anything about Nigerian borders, quickly we think about the border police. In such cases, perhaps the customs and some other agents. So, lately, how would you rate, the synergy between these agencies to the extent that people still talk about Nigeria having a loose or porous border?
Well, thank you very much. Nigeria's borders have been very porous traditionally because there has not been a conscious effort to secure it better. And of course, this has been primarily motivated by the cross-cultural affinities of boundary communities which surround the country. And it's somehow very difficult to police the borders the way it should be. And of course, if you recall, under some previous government in Nigeria, I guess that was under head of state, General Babangida, the idea of establishing the National Guard was placed. And in fact, the force was almost ready to start its work before the administration faded out. The National Guard will have helped to provide that quasi-military force that will have been efficient enough, one, to nip crisis in the board, especially around our boundaries. Secondly, most countries that are afflicted by threats to their borders always consider the strategy of fencing their borders. And I have said it on several media that Nigeria needs to consider fencing her borders. As some people say, oh, wow, it costs so much money. Well, when you go back to introspection, you will know that when we reduce the convoy of some of our government officials, we will be able to find money to protect the entire Nigerian state. And using Kenya as a typical example, Kenya had similar issues in our eastern boundaries with frequent incursions of the El Shabaab group, which have made foraging attacks, attacking shopping malls, universities in Kenya. So the Kenyan government decided to fence off our eastern boundaries. And you know how they did it? They called on the Kenyan Defense Forces to begin the process of fencing. The last time I checked, the border project have exceeded 50%. And that is done by the Kenyan Defense Force. Nigeria Armed Forces have its own engineers. We have a lot of engineers within the services that can commence this if they are properly motivated and provided for. And that will be supported by technology, of course, to monitor. That reduces the human effort that is required to protect the borders. But like I said earlier on, the desire of boundary communities and who have affinities with one another to live and cross each other's boundaries, and as if they are one part of their houses may even be in one side of the border, while the bedrooms will be in another part of the border. So these things have to be streamlined, and then we must make sure that moving forward, we must decide as a nation whether we want to fence those borders. The Beniners are fencing their own borders, and why can't we do that?
Francis, you've heard Commodore Ayuba on the issue of porosity of our borders. What's your reaction to that? You think fencing the borders is one way to get Nigeria safe from the hands of these marauding killers and terrorists?
I know that as far back as 2014, Nigeria had about 1,400 illegal border routes. And these routes were mostly used for the smuggling of arms and all sorts of items into the country. Fencing the border is one way, like he has said. Yes, it's a good way to start. But I think also that we need to get those men we have put at the borders to do what they are kept there to do. Because I sometimes it's laughable, for instance, when you read on the newspapers that the Nigerian Customs Service are going around supermarkets, they're going around markets, general markets, and seizing goods that they claim entered into the country illegally. And the question is, how did these goods enter in the first place? So it's just the same way these goods enter without them knowing, or maybe they just close their eyes to the reality. That is how these guys who bring in arms and ammunition bring them into the country. So yes, it is good to fence the borders. But while we are talking about fencing the borders, it's also proper for us to put more men on the field, men who would really checkmate people entering into the country. You know, I remember a few months during the COVID lockdown, most of the borders in the south were closed. And we saw even the Ghanaians, we saw them getting so upset that our borders were shut up. But then up north, the borders were all open. So we need to, it's something that this government needs to think critically and take a decisive decision. It's something they need to take a political decision to say, we want to protect our borders. We want to eliminate banditry, terrorism, kidnappers from our country. The only way we can do it is by ensuring that those who carry the Nigerian green, white, green flag, green, white, green identity card are real Nigerians. We cannot have people who are not Nigerians. They are being registered every day under the national identification number, and they're carrying it, and they're not Nigerians. They can't even speak in any of the Nigerian languages. So we need to checkmate these things. And it starts with the government doing the right thing. The government needs to understand that the Nigerian people, they owe it to us to protect our lives and properties. It is in the Constitution. And they must do everything within their powers to do it. And so that is why I get upset when I hear people earning fat salaries and nothing is being done. This is how many years going down the line. We've not had a census. Even though the government says now we're going to have census next year, but we've not had one. And if we're going to have census next year, as the government is saying, how much sensitization have they carried out? Who and who is going to be counted? Who and who is going to do it? So there's a lot that is wrong. It's not just about the borders, but it's also about the mindset of the government itself.
You know, Francis, if there's anything, you know, that should also worry Nigerians, you know, those key things that you've highlighted, talking about those who should man the borders of the country, perhaps sometimes looking the other way, as you highlighted. How come some goods, escape the eagle eyes of these people to the extent that they get into shelves in shops? So if that can't happen, then the smuggling of light arms and weapons can also be a thing that should worry people. I come back to Commodore Ayuba. I know you have also spoken and also written about the proliferation, smuggling of light and small arms into the country. You had also spoken about how some of these came after the fall of Libya. Tell us more about what you know about this so that we can actually put this side by side with the porous borders of Nigeria.
Well, thank you very much. Like proliferation of small arms and light weapons have its dimensions, and of course, what bothers us more, or what should concern us more, is the illicit proliferation of small arms and light weapons. Because when you consider the subject matter, you have the licit and then the illicit proliferation of arms. But let's zero in onto the illicit, which is what is threatening our security. When beyond the Libyan debacle, there have always been arms smuggling, and in fact, the usage of arms became even more intense in Nigeria since 2017. You will recall that there were several seizures of arms in Tinkan Island port in Lagos, where we commended the customs, I think 2017, 2018, and I did raise a flag in some other media that it's an indication that the demand for small arms and light weapons is going to increase. And beyond 2019 elections, we might begin to see very, very dastardly use of illicit weapons. And that has predicted itself now. There are many other routes beyond the Libyan route. There are other routes where small arms have been proliferated. You know that sometimes the Horn of Africa also have, you have Somaliland, you have a lot of ungoverned spaces. And of course, most of these arms also infiltrate not only from our northern borders, but they also coming from all other borders, including the maritime environment. And that's why the Navy is doing massively very well in terms of policing our coastline, especially in the Gulf of Guinea, which also with the huge possibilities of vessels carrying huge cartels of caches of arms. And of course, we recall that some time ago, there were seizures of very, very huge high caliber weapons that were intercepted that were meant to be smuggled into the country. So what I would say is that in terms of illicit proliferation of weapons, the government must decide, and I think there's something going on right now, which we've not taken seriously in the past. The establishment of the Small Arms Commission, which has earlier been recommended by the ECOWAS Convention on Prohibition of Small Arms and related materials, that we needed to have a Small Arms Commission. I think the debate is going on right now in the National Assembly. And if that is put in place, then we begin to look for subject matter experts that will work within that commission, which is not like the committees that have been proliferated already in the country, of people who don't even know anything about small arms and light weapons. So the way forward is to mop up all the arms that we seize, destroy them. There is no need to recycle them, because what we see is the tendency to recycle seized arms. And when that happens, even the criminals will tend to target military armories, armories of police and other security agencies to be able to get their fair share of these seized arms. So what is recommended is destruction of seized weapons, and that has to be done deliberately and professionally too. Sulai.
So, before I go to Francis, let me stay with you, Commodore Ayuba, quickly. You mentioned Kenya a while ago. Now we're talking about arms. Tell us the state, if you will, of DICON, because we thought Nigeria was also in the production of some, arms and ammunition at that factory of the military.
Yes, the establishment of and promotion of military industrial complex occupies the mind and the strategic thinking of governments around the world. And of course, happily, at the beginning of the federal government retreat, the president did reiterate the desire of the federal government to upgrade and support the DICON, Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria. And of course, the DICON is upping its game. Recently, the police were able to take up a lot of equipments, body armors and helmets and some other light armors are being produced there right now. But we require more than one of those complexes. It needs to be spread across the nation so that the benefits of localization of industry can be fully felt all across the country. So DICON is a great idea to revive it. And like I always say, Nigeria never be short of ideas. What we need is to be consistent about implementation. And I think that will is beginning to show up, and we can only continue to request the federal government to continue to support the expansion and growth of the military industrial complex. As a matter of fact, we end up earning very, very huge foreign exchange for Nigeria, because other countries within the sub-region, we want to come to buy and procure equipment from the country, while we save vital foreign exchange from buying foreign products, and also drive national security at the peak of its game.
All right, okay, thank you. We'll go on a break. When we come back, Francis will help us, unpack the issue of tribal and ethnic clashes, and of course, draw a line of how the country has been battling Boko Haram and how it also metamorphosed into other regions, talking about bandits now that the country has realized that these are actually terrorists. That's when we return. Join us again. Billions of naira have been paid in ransom to kidnappers in Nigeria in the last 1 year, and some of these kidnappers have been revealed, to use bank accounts. Yes, You heard right. This brings one to wonder why such kidnappers are not easily traced, and also questions the extent of intelligence gathering and the use of intelligence among Nigerian security operatives. The prosecution of some of these so-called bandits, terrorists, or even kidnappers isn't also forthcoming and leaves Nigerians at the mercy of more criminals. Helpless, sometimes hopeless, what a Nigerian prays for today is security in the face of hard times. Still with me on the show is retired Commodore Abimbola, Ayuba, and Francis Chilaka. Quickly, let's start with you, Francis. Before we went on that break, we have also tried to look at, synergy among security operatives and talk about intelligence gathering and care for those who watch over the nation. Quickly, there's been tension in some parts of the country, tribal and ethnic clashes, which have claimed lives in places like Plateau State and even in Kaduna. For a problem that has been in existence for so long, is this a failure of culture, or really what can be done to foster unity? I think you need to unmute yourself, Francis. You still...
So when you talk about ethnic and tribal clashes, it's been there. It's part of humanity. It's part of man. It's part of Nigerians. People would always want to identify with those who claim or don't speak the language, go to the same church, and all of that. But we must address these issues holistically. I would say that what we've had in Nigeria, even though we try to call it tribal and ethnic clashes, is more of political warfare. Our politicians are the ones who have capitalized on the gullibility of some of our people to create all these problems. Because a politician would spend several millions of naira. Nobody checks
Francis, allow me to butt in here quickly. There seems to be some wind intrusion somewhere. If you can get that, there's some kind of wind intrusion into your microphone. More like if we can get that off.
Okay, I'll do that now.
Okay, while we wait for you to do that, we can just go to Commodore Ayuba, and we'll come back to you quickly. Commodore Ayuba, a whole lot happening. Insecurity is a global problem today, and what Nigeria is also dealing with is something that people will say, experts like yourself will say, Nigeria has its own complexities. What does Nigeria need to really make better decisions?
Well, what the Nigerians need to do, or what the governance system need to do, is to bring governance down to the grassroots, where the opinion of the ordinary man in the streets is factored into the planning process and the decision making. And that can only happen if, in the case of true federalism, where the voice of the masses, the voice of the helpless, is heard, irrespective of where he stands within the boundaries of the nation state called Nigeria. And that should be the starting point for us to really begin the rapprochement towards getting Nigeria to work again. And of course, we can see in recent times, the Senate also have come back around full rudder about to endorse direct primaries, for instance, for our elections, and also have also agreed that it was okay to transmit the results electronically. So this inch by inch, when we take very popular decisions and decisions that can impact on the ordinary Nigerian, what is left is to make sure that food is available on the table and that the common man who wants to do his small business is able to have electricity, and that security is guaranteed. The ordinary Nigerian is not really too bothered about the complexities of high wire politics. But the moment they are not able to eat, they are not able to feed, then it's an invitation to trouble. And I think this is where the focus should be now. All these clashing, conflicting decisions, hiking of electricity fees, threatening to increase petroleum price products. These are things that will only impact on the common man. Where is the landing ground? Where is the safety valve? So the national safety valves must be reviewed. And of course, there must come out a clear definition of a threshold beneath which no Nigerian must be allowed to fall, beneath which no Nigerian must be allowed to suffer. And when that happens, patriotism will be heading north. And of course, we expect that the average Nigerian will give up himself towards the national cohesion and national security. This is my take on these aspects, Sulai.
So I'll come back to you. Let me go to Francis. And Francis, well, apologies for that. But again, good to know that you're back. And I see that I can hear that the audio connection is better with that intrusion out. Quickly, I'll let you land on where you stopped and actually get the other question in for you.
Okay, all I was saying is that it is natural for human beings to want to disagree in the issue of language, religion, and all of that. But the problem we're having in this country is not the ordinary Nigerians. The ordinary Nigerians are living in happiness. They're comfortable. All they want is for government to provide an enabling environment for them to continue to live their lives peacefully. Those who are behind every tribal, ethnic, and religious crisis are our politicians. They take advantage of the gullibility of the people. And so we need to begin to have a political system that is not too expensive. We need to have a political system that allows people who are qualified, not because they have the monetary power, but because they have the goodness of the people at heart, to become leaders. If you do a study of all our leaders today, you'll be shocked at the kind of things you'll find out. So this is where the problem lies. We need to address that urgently. And another thing is, I believe that we can find a solution to everything that has to do with tribal, ethnic, and religious. It's just one solution. The National Assembly, the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary should be able to say, today, we want to have a unified Nigeria. How do we achieve that? We need to throw away this thing called state of origin and replace it with state of residence. It gives everybody a sense of belonging. Because when you ask a Nigerian, where are you from? He doesn't tell you I'm a Nigerian. He first of all tells you, I'm from Lagos, I'm a Lagosian, or I'm from Imo. But we need to change that mindset. If we want peace in this country, we need to throw away state of origin and replace it with state of residence.
Yeah, before I go to Commodore Ayuba, I think I want him to react to that because I saw him, smile while you were talking about the state of residence. But again, let me stay with you, Francis, quickly here. Just recently, President Buhari told the ministers at the retreat that some amount of money has been, earmarked to help community policing, help policing in different places of the country. And you also, in your opening, mentioned how, you're talking about the welfare of the Nigerian police. So should that be the priority of the government at the moment, or what should really be the priority of the government? To put more money for state policing, or to put more money for the welfare of our Nigerian police as it is?
They go hand in hand. You can't do without the other one. But the thing is, I will still stand my grounds by saying that, yes, I believe in state policing, and I believe that the current system of policing we're running in this country is flawed. I'll give you a typical example. You don't take somebody from, say, from Yola or Yobe State, and you make him a commissioner of police in Abia State. He doesn't understand the people. He doesn't understand the language of the people. I've always advocated that sometimes those who make policies, especially for security, we should go back to look at when the late Sunday Adewusi was commissioner, was the IG of police. His model of policing was top-notch. He said it clearly. I remember in one of his speeches, he said that there is no crime that happens within a jurisdiction that the DPO is not aware. But unfortunately, we now have a situation where the people are no longer afraid of the Nigerian police. The Nigerian police needs to do more. They need to build more on their integrity, on their self-esteem. They need to work so hard to build back the trust of the Nigerian people. The Nigerian people don't trust the Nigerian police at all. Let us say it the way it is. And most of our Nigerian policemen have lost self-esteem. So we just don't need to be chunking people out from police colleges. We need to also have continuous training for them, not training on how to use arms. No, we need to train them on how to relate with the people. Sometimes you go to the Nigerian police station to report a case, or the way you are treated less a human. And I believe that it's part of their psyche, because they too are not well, groomed. So we need to have a situation where our policemen, our military men are trained to respect the Nigerian people. They must understand that the sovereignty belongs to the Nigerian people. They are just holding it for us. When you respect the people will respect you back. That is what respect is. It's reciprocal. So the police and those who manage the Nigerian police formation need to do more. They need to do more in terms of education, in terms of welfare, and in terms of the families of the policemen. You must also provide insurance for them. Go to most of our police quarters. You'll be ashamed what is going on there. The places are unkept and all of that. So the government, yes, in talking about state policing and all of that, it is good, it is important, but we must not run it like we're running the current police formation.
Okay, let me bring in Commodore Ayuba here. Listen to Francis. He's raised some key issues here. First, he went looking at the national life, of Nigeria, talking about some key issues as to state of origin, which is embedded in the national life of Nigeria. And he thinks that if that is taken out, it will sort of help cement unity of the nation. And he also said something about the civil relations between the Nigerian police and the people and even other security agencies. Help us here. How can these be further, harnessed to the extent that Nigerians will have more trust and, friendliness towards these agents and agencies to volunteer information to rid criminals of their society?
Thank you very much. I agree with Francis's submission in terms of the need to remove those clogs in especially known, especially referred to as national fault lines, which ethnicity and religion is a major part of. Developing the will to do that and making Nigerians to see themselves first as Nigerians than where you come from. You will hardly have any conversation with a fellow Nigerian. Within the first 1 minute of your conversation, he becomes interested in knowing where you come from. And these are things that really dampen patriotism. And I think that this should be looked at moving forward. But again, in our politics, we also have to go back to the issues of power sharing and, of course, generating fair, equitable, and balanced policies that we be able to throw up leaders that are true and honest to their oaths of offices and that are truly committed and passionate to lead people and provide goodness from the people. That will also require de-emphasizing money politics, which is the greatest monster that has now plagued our system and have allowed politicians, most politicians, if I may say, to control the minds of most impoverished Nigerians. And of course, for peanuts, they are able to move the will of Nigerians to do things that are quite considered abominable in other climes. So I believe that moving the system forward, these are constitutional things that have to be looked at and thought well. So I also agree with the submissions of Francis when he says that the three arms of government need to sit down and identify this. And that is not new because we have several conferences where all these things have been said. We have never been short of ideas, like I said. It is the will to implement these ideas that have been it. And moving forward to the issue of civil cooperation, I think, well, I want to focus on civil-military cooperation. I think beyond in the last 10 years or so, the military, ever than before, have in fact established specialized units, departments in all the services headquarters and down to the smallest units, where we are doing a lot of enlightenment for the younger soldiers, where most of these issues of abuse are generated from. And I think the military is better off for it, save for one or two skirmishes will happen, and these are far between. For the police, I may not be able to speak so much for the police because I think even though we begin to see younger, newer police officers who are better educated coming on stream, but overall, there's much focus need to be on the police and their civility, because in other crimes like the United Nations, they are referred to and distinguished as the civilian police. And that means that they should be at the front line. They should be at shoulder to shoulder with the civilian populace. And that also interrogates the role in which they are playing. Right now, we are beginning to see them trying to also help to control territory right now as we deal with this terror problem. Hitherto, they virtually abdicated their responsibilities to the military and made the military overburdened, and where the military need to move on to do their own kinetic operations. Most of the spaces that had earlier been captured at so much expense, human and material, are left ungoverned because the police are never found to be in those places. And it's also strange to always hear that after every crime has been committed, you are mobilizing tactical teams all over the place. Medicine after death, to lie.
Well, thank you. And now we're closing quickly here. Francis, speak to the nation. A nation going into an election year. 2023 is almost here. It looks like 2022, even if we're in 2021. And everyone is looking towards that year. And with proliferation of arms, you know, agitations but by some groups, and of course with the bandits and terrorists, and also, by the way, drug problem, which the NDLEA is also talking about, to the extent that now they're also asking that those seeking political offices should also, as a matter of fact, in some other states, should take the drug test. What would be your message to Nigerians, Francis?
My message will actually be to the Nigerian youths, because they are the ones that are used to cause all the mayhem. They are the ones that are used to, destroy voters and chase voters away. And I'll say this to every Nigerian youth out there. If any politician asks you to be in the forefront to cause crisis during the elections, ask him to put his daughter and son and wife in the forefront and you queue behind them. It is very, very important. And those who are so gullible to buy anything that this politician sells to them, you should ask yourself, how many of you that are called thugs, how many of you that are called ballot box snatchers, how many of you would actually have an opportunity to dine with them when you have them win this election in any way humanly possible? Let the Nigerian youth begin to think out of the box. It's not about the 5,000, 10,000 the politician is giving to you at that moment. No. Let us begin to think about this country, Nigeria. What do we want for it? How do we want to live it? How do we want our name to be remembered tomorrow? So let us, every one of us, go out there, get our voter's card, and get ready for the elections. And let us vote people who have credibility, integrity to rule this country. Nigeria will be great. I can assure you that.
I love the sound of that. Nigeria will be great. And for every optimist out there, it will be an exciting, sound to them. Quickly, Commodore Ayuba, close this for us today. You said that there's no problem that is insurmountable for Nigerians and for our troops. Do you subscribe to Nigeria seeking outside help to prosecute the war against terror?
Yes, absolutely, Sulai. Looking back at Nigeria's huge contributions to international peace support operations in the past, Nigeria was among the first 3 leading troop contributing countries to the United Nations. And going down the line between 2013 and now, Nigeria stands at 42nd position in the list of troop contributing countries. And that implies that we have contributed so much to the external international environment. So we deserve to have and enjoy the support of the international community, particularly the United Nations and all the other regional outfits, African Union and ECOWAS. We need to leave this big brother posture and admit that we need support in some areas that require technical assistance. We need to submit. While not yielding our total sovereignty, we have done peacekeeping operations successfully elsewhere. So let's also benefit as a member of the global community. And I think Nigeria needs to look this way, and so that we can relieve this overburdened and battle-weary men and officers who seem to have unending engagements in their military career. There's need to retrain them. There's need to also look after their well-being, both psychologically and financially. And if we continue to fight on an unending war, we will not be able to do that. So I will submit that we require to look at genuine help from external bodies, especially those particular organizations where we subscribe to and are deserving members. We deserve support. This is my standpoint. Thank you.
It's a fine place for us to say thank you very much for being such nice company, Commodore Abimbola Ayuba, retired, and Francis Chilaka. You know, the solution to insecurity, listening to both of you, is better security, and Nigerian leaders can't take their eyes off the lives of the people. It's the least they can offer the citizens. Well, thank you. I'll be back again. Bye-bye.